Well, first of all, let me pay tribute to Martin McGuinness, both for the decisiveness of his action yesterday, because he called the halt to the totally inappropriate and inappropriate manner in which Arlene Foster was behaving. As I made clear in remarks last week, she's not a Prime Minister. She's the co-equal holder of an office, the office of OFM, DFM. And once you breach that integrity, then, just isn't tenable. But the tipping point in all of this was, of course, the RHI scandal. And she was the minister who was responsible for that from its very inception, and for 3 years she actually oversaw the implementation of that scheme. It has cost the taxpayer $500 million. And that's unions, taxpayers, as well as the rest of us. This is not an orange and green issue, and whatever effort the DUP make to circle the wagons and say this is an attempt to get rid of a strong leader, this is not. This is about accountability. This is about zero tolerance for corruption, if there is any corruption. It's about rooting out bad governance, and it's especially about making sure that the institutions deliver for people. Well, there has to be an election. First of all, some people will say, well, look, what's the point? The DUP are going to come back, Sinn Féin are going to come back, we're going to be in the same places we were. We're not. Martin made it very, very clear. And remember, he was the most reluctant, he said this, resigner. 10 years he was in there, worked with Ian Paisley, worked with Peter Robinson, worked with Arlene Foster. So I think it's an indication of how serious the situation is and was that he took that action. But he said there'd be no return to the status quo. So the DUP needn't think they're going to go through an election and then sail back into office. The only way that we will get the institutions working if they're based upon the principles that are inherent in the Good Friday Agreement. And you see, whoever represents the DUP, that's a matter for them. Whoever leads the DUP, that's their business. But whoever jointly leads the North politically, that's the business of the people here. So the election is an opportunity for people to stand with Martin McGuinness, but also, and more importantly, to make sure that there's fairness, that there's decency, that there's good manners, that there's respect, and that is what underpins the power-sharing political institutions. The governments have been very dilatory in upholding and fulfilling their obligations. I mean, one of the issues that Martin cited yesterday is that despite the request from the Lord Chief Justice here that funding be set aside for victims' families in terms of inquests and so on, the British government, Martin suspects, in collusion with the DUP, have blocked that. So, that's a mark of a bad government. This is the government also which is, with the support of the DUP, is intent on taking this state away from the island of Ireland and out of the European Union, despite the majority vote of people here that they want to stay within the European Union. And of course, the Tories have also signalled that they're going to get rid of a lot of the human rights elements. So, having said that, there's a big responsibility on the Irish government. And the Irish government also has been lacking in its focus, and I have consistently in the Dáil called for a consistent, strategic, ongoing engagement with the British government. Not something that's tagged on to a meeting, not something that's in the middle of a crisis that you do a series of summits, but consistently working our way through that. On Brexit, an all-Ireland vision, on United Ireland, trying to persuade the unionists, but in terms of the Good Friday Agreement, fulfilling the government's obligations. Then Kenny's responsibility is co-equal guarantor of an agreement which is internationally a treaty and which the people north and south voted for. So there's a big onus on the two governments, and we, of course, are looking for the biggest mandate possible so that we can go back into these negotiations after the election to ensure that, one, there's a proper inquiry into this scam, and two, that all of the equality and fairness that's involved becomes reality in the institutions. I know a lot of people have been very shocked by how frail Martin looked yesterday on television and in the press. And I have to say, I found yesterday an emotional day also. But look, he's getting the very, very, very best of medical support and attention. He's very, very resilient. He's very resolute. Bernie, his wife, and the entire family are right behind him 100%. So please God, he'll be back to himself. And let me say, he's also overwhelmed by the messages of support that he and his family have been receiving. And I also have received some of those on his behalf. People have been in touch with me to say, tell Martin I was asking for him and tell him we're praying for him and so on. Some of them coming from Protestants. Some of them coming actually from former RUC officers, from former combatants. So, we're all worrying about him quite rightly, because he has given so much to all of this endeavour. So let's send good vibrations, and if people believe in prayers, let's send prayers also.